Hi, everyone, to all the ASMALLWORLD members around the world. I'm really happy to have you here for our masterclass today, which is all about how to replace yourself, especially if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, and how to really build and manage a remote team. My name is Saleema Vellani, and here's a little bit about me. And before I speak, I just want everyone to say hello in your native language. I also have one of my remote team members here, Stephen, who will be engaging in the chat. So feel free to engage in the chat and I'll be watching that as well. Just a little bit about me, just me in a snapshot. I am the author of Innovation Starts with I just finished writing this book, which is basically about how to reinvent yourself in your business and navigate the current future of work and be successful, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner. I also teach entrepreneurship and design thinking at Johns Hopkins University, as well as at university startups. I do a lot of keynote speaking. I actually did my TEDx this year on Innovation Starts with I. And I am the founder and CEO of Ripple Impact, which is an accelerator, a business accelerator and community that basically helps entrepreneurs grow their audience, their platform, increase their revenue, and be successful. And also we help them grow their own remote teams. And so that's a little bit about me. What I used to do, 10 to 12 years ago, I actually started, let me tell you a little bit of background story. So I actually graduated in 2009 from McGill University, and I couldn't find a job for obvious reasons, right? There was the economic recession. And I went to Brazil, did some volunteer work, then went to Italy and couldn't find a job there either. I tried, trying to work at a restaurant for a day, Southern Italian food, that didn't work. For those of you who don't know, Reggio Calabria is at the toe of Italy, right at the boot. So unemployment was already really bad there. And so in 2009, when the Greek and Euro crisis was starting, it was a really terrible situation. I couldn't get a job to teach English because I didn't have a British accent. I'm Canadian. And so I ended up going and my brother said, why don't you do some freelance translation work? And I ended up starting to do some translation and turn it into a six-figure translation agency within just a few months, because there was so much demand from people who, from companies, especially European companies, that wanted to take their companies global. And they needed website translation. And we were very good at doing HTML, translating within, using technical platforms. And we were the market leaders, and it did really, really well. But again, I can't say it was a complete accident, but it all started from just that idea. And the reason it was successful was when I took a step back and I realized I can translate from, Portuguese or Spanish or French or Italian to English, but I could not translate into those other languages because I was not a native speaker. And to guarantee the quality, I had to hire native speakers. And the demand was not so much from other languages to English, it was from English to the other languages. And I also realized, being a recovering perfectionist, let's call me that, I took a very long time to do translation work. So I realized, even though it wasn't what I could provide, I could do a little bit of work. I was good at getting those proposals, winning the contracts, and building a team of translators around the world who could do all that website and document translation. And so that's just a little bit of my story of how this all started with building remote teams. But essentially, I actually ended up telling my story one day because I was very embarrassed of being an entrepreneur, because my whole thing was to get a job and get my dream job. And when I was in graduate school, everyone had jobs, and I was the one that was secretly running my business. And so I never really, living in Italy, I didn't have a community. I didn't know about investors. I didn't even consider myself an entrepreneur. It was only a few years later, about 4.5 years later, when I moved to the US and I went to my first business boot camp, a startup event. And it was at this co-working space, as you see on the left-hand side in Washington, DC. And I saw that there was this woman who gave a talk on Elance and how to grow your business using a remote team. And I was like, wow, I've done that before. And Elance is a platform I used as well. And now it's called Upwork. For those of you who don't know, it was Elance and Elance Odesk, and now Upwork. And I ended up getting a job just there, telling my story when I was very embarrassed about it. I was like, well, let me tell her how I used remote teams to build my own business. And it ended up getting me a part-time job in addition to my other work that I was doing. And I would actually, go to lead and, help develop the partnership with WeWork and Upwork, and really help businesses, help entrepreneurs, help small businesses build remote teams. And unfortunately, I did all these lunch and learns. I helped sponsor many events, as you see on the right-hand side. I would, give a lot of money to different, lean startup machines, startup weekends, and different events, but realized that, just within a year and a half, I ended up getting laid off. And the reason behind that is because our startup education program failed. Unfortunately, people were just not ready to hire remote. We found that people would maybe use the $100 we gave them to produce a logo, and then they would leave the platform, and they wouldn't actually regularly use the platform. And we ended up all getting laid off in that program because we realized that there was just not enough demand from entrepreneurs to hire remote teams. They were like, well, we'd rather hire local. And so that ended up failing. And I parked the idea, the remote teams. I said, well, I did it successfully before. Maybe it's just not going to work anymore. And I put it aside and I went on with my life. And that's a whole nother story. If you want to read about it, it's in my book of how I reinvented myself. But essentially right now, when the pandemic happened, actually, I said, well, why don't we bring that back and just build a remote team? I had a remote assistant at the time here in Colombia, where I am right now. I'm actually based in the US usually, but I'm currently in Colombia because we were having our own remote team offsite in person for the very first time throughout the pandemic. And a lot of our team members are here in Colombia. So interestingly, when the pandemic happened, I said, well, what can I do? And I realized a lot of entrepreneurs were wanting to get advice from me on how to build their businesses and build their platforms and be successful. And I said, well, why don't I teach them how to hire remote teams? And that also failed because I realized that giving just advice and just teaching them what to do wasn't always what they needed. They also needed strategy. They needed execution help. They really needed to roll their sleeves up. And, we needed to really help them by being their team. Not to say that you can't learn anything from today. I'm now teaching you a lot of what I have learned over the past year and a half since the pandemic started on how I can help you in a better way to build your own remote team through the lessons that we've learned and navigated and the process we've taken successfully. But essentially right now is the right time. Like when we hired a lot of our team members when the pandemic happened, we started growing very quickly because as we became the team behind the scenes to many entrepreneurs, we grew our creative team, our graphic designers, our project managers. Stephen right here, for example, he joined us just a few months ago. We brought on more, client managers and all sorts of different talent. And then we became the team behind the scenes to many entrepreneurs. But essentially, people are home now. There's a lot more benefits to hiring remotely. We've now moved into, this next step in digital transformation in the world, in the workforce. And so it's become easier and more cost effective to hire people remotely. So why hire remotely, especially if you're an entrepreneur? It really makes a lot of sense to build a remote team because you can take advantage of many opportunities so that you're not doing it all yourselves. A lot of times people say that as an entrepreneur, you should do it all yourself until you get to a certain point. But many entrepreneurs, especially the ones that would come to me for advice because they were in the process of failing and having to then go look for a full-time job or shut down their business, they were doing everything themselves. They were, doing their own graphic design on Canva. They were copywriting, even if they weren't good at it. They were trying to manage their community. They were trying to do all their speaking gigs. They were the ideas person, which they should be if you're an entrepreneur. Likely you are a visionary. They were trying to do strategy, or they were trying to do it all, doing all their marketing and social media. And it was very overwhelming. And I said, well, things don't have to be that way. If you get help and allow people to be part of your vision and come on early on to your team, before you think you need your team, they will help grow that business. And so you don't have to spend so long overwhelmed trying to do it all yourself. In fact, you see here, if you have a remote team or you start building one, then you can just focus on the thing that you're very good at, the thing that your clients, your customers value you the most in, and you can then build a whole business around that and have all the support that you need. So you're not doing it all. And a lot of people ask, well, what are today's employees searching for? And, they're looking for culture, they're looking for purpose, they're looking for they're trying to make an impact. And it's very interesting because, especially if you're looking at Gen Z or some of the younger generations, they're very much searching for something different than perhaps older generations. And if you are in another generation, it's important to really empathize with what today's, work. Some ways test and make sure that you have a successful experience with hiring people. And this is a lot of my own lessons learned through my own failures, is doing aptitude tests and interviews. So now that we're all on Zoom, you can actually go ahead and give remote control and find a way to really test, new candidates, or people that are applying for your jobs to work with you, to see their skills on the spot. You don't have to just do an interview where you're just talking to someone. You can actually get them to do stuff on the spot, share cloud tools, see how they write, how fast they are. You can test a lot because we have the technology, and people have now gotten used to how to use Zoom and the different functions. You don't have to ask for just a traditional CV. You can ask for portfolios. You can ask for examples of past work, but especially you can ask for video applications instead of just waiting to get a CV and just reading what they've written down and not even knowing if they actually wrote their CV. It's great to see who they are, how they show up authentically on a camera, and ask for a video application. You might even weed out a lot of people that aren't that serious about working with you, because the ones that are will go ahead and do that video application and customize it. You can also test people out in different roles. One thing that we do here at Ripple Impact is we hire a lot of people part-time initially for the first month or 2 months, and we try to see what they're good at. We try to test them out in different positions and adjust and see, well, what are they good at? What do they think that they're good at? What do they want to become good at? And how can we, create a job or adjust their job role based on that? You can also do interview exercises, post-interview exercises. So after you do, if you want to do a spoken, like an oral interview, then, after that, you can give them a Google document, make copies of it, give it to the different candidates, give them different exercises to fill out. And as I mentioned before, doing those trial periods is great. You want to hire as many people as possible for those trial periods part-time, and then figure out who you want to keep. You don't want to invest 6 months into someone and be like, oh, they weren't the right fit. You want to test out as many people as possible. Some advantages of remote teams is that you get access to not just the people around you, but to the entire global talent pool. Especially, you get different perspectives just working with our team in different countries. So many great ideas and solutions just here in Colombia at our retreat. So many great ideas have come up, and empowering, everyone on the team to be part of the vision. You also get specialized talent. So if you just need, some solutions here and there, you need a consultant or somebody that can work part-time and be part of the business, but you don't necessarily need someone full-time. You can hire very specialized talent remotely. You can also take advantage of the fact that, we have the entire world, and you can, leverage different areas. For example, for web development, we often hire people in South Asia. For creative skills, we often hire people in South America. There's different ways you can, leverage the opportunities to work with people in different countries based on the talent that they might excel at. It also helps cut costs of overhead. I used to have a WeWork office, a few years ago, and it was a lot to deal with the office rent and, different bills to pay, all the different things that we have to deal with when we had in-person offices. But doing it remotely allows you to actually take advantage and cut all those costs to be able to then invest more in your business, invest more in the right talent. And there's just so much you can do because of being able to work remotely and cutting those costs. We also, for example, we get to meet at least once or twice a year with our team, which is great. We can meet in a different place in the world. For many of you ASW members who travel, it's great to be able to then just change the way we work, getting a really nice co-working Airbnb where we co-live and co-work for a couple of weeks to really spend time together, and instead of investing that in office rentals. So you can get really creative with how you do it. Flexibility, a lot of people love that, just being able to wake up and start working in their pajamas. It's better than going with the commute. Some people do prefer working in an office, but a lot of times the people that we end up attracting do love working from home and having that flexibility. It's faster to scale when you do have a remote team. And if you, set things up properly, do everything as if it was in person, but doing it virtually and adapting a bit as well, keeping your all hands meetings, setting things up so people feel that they're part of this experience and they feel included is key. The other beautiful thing is just having everything on the cloud. It's great. We don't even have to use Microsoft Office and a lot of those programs anymore. We just have everything on the cloud. So it's very easy and fast to be able to work on the cloud in our different platforms, using Trello, using Canva and different tools. It's amazing. And it also helps fill in the gaps. So if you just need certain skills for part of the time, it's so much easier to just manage someone remotely and a lot cheaper than hiring someone just for a short amount or a small project or part-time. And so you can get really creative with how you work with your remote team. Another thing that I want to mention here is some of the slight disadvantages. I also want to say that, it doesn't work for everyone. So not everyone works well remotely. And I would say it's important for the team leader or the boss, the leadership, to really have a strong knowledge and be able to adapt and work well virtually, because that will determine, you don't have to be as great as some of the younger folks on our team. They're so fast and so great with technology. But ultimately, just having a basic knowledge of how to use the different tools and systems, it's really, really key, because some people just can't adapt to it. And I think, it just takes some time and patience, but it definitely is very important. It can be challenging to sometimes work in a remote team, right? Because the only time you really get to see each other is on Zoom when you do these face-to-face calls, or if you're communicating on Slack and you jump on a video call or whatever it is. It's very different than being able to just go and have a coffee or go and have a lunch with your team. It's not the same as in person, and I'm not saying it's necessarily better, because there are also some disadvantages. So you have to figure out what works for you. You have to think about, are they good enough? Sometimes you don't know people. They might not always come by referral, so you might not really be able to trust or know. It comes down to the point of letting go of control. Are you okay with releasing control? How much can you trust someone not knowing them in person? And, trying different exercises and taking the time to test. And that's why we have the trial period. The first month or two is key to navigate this limitation. Management techniques. It's getting harder now. People have higher expectations when it comes to remote work. When I had my translation business, it was very, very challenging, because at the time, actually, we didn't have, we had Skype, but we didn't really have a way to gather everyone together. It was a lot harder because we didn't have a way to really create a sense of culture within our team. But I think over time, we figured out, well, people at the end of the day just wanted to get their work done and go home or stay home or whatever they were doing. And they didn't necessarily, need, a lot of attention. Let's just say that. And today the world has changed, because we've gotten used to being on the screen. We have to foster an environment where we, can actually, create a sense of culture and understand people. A lot of people today are bringing their whole selves to work, especially when we see some of the younger generations, and they want to feel like their whole self is coming to work. And it's not just about getting their work done and clocking in and clocking out. It's very, very different. So style is very, very key, especially since this is the first time ever that we have, I think, at least five generations working in the workplace. Privacy, also very tricky, and there's ways you can navigate that. We use, whether you use LastPass or Bitwarden or some sort of password manager. It's really important, as you have turnover, as people coming in and out, you have a way to manage the privacy of the company. It's getting harder because obviously things are easy to copy, they're on the cloud, but ultimately having the right agreements in place and managing that privacy well from the beginning with the password management is also very important. And I'd say one of the hardest things is having hard conversations. It's very challenging to have those difficult conversations sometimes remotely. Some people prefer it, picking up the phone or jumping on Zoom, but it's never the same as being completely in person and having a full conversation with somebody. And so having hard conversations can be difficult, although now it's become easier that people have gotten used to using video. There are advantages, but there are answers to. So what are people for today? They're looking for flexible policies. They want to know, when they're figuring out who they want to work for, who has the best policy. They want to work, they want those perks. For us, for example, we have, travel. So we take everyone on a retreat, or we try to incorporate travel as much as possible. We have some other perks in there as well. Some people want to work a side gig or something like this. We have some flexible policies so they can do their passion project or take on a side hustle. We know that people grow, and we don't have to, own our employees in any way. We want them to be free. We want them to be part of the vision, but we also want them to be their whole selves. And so we've realized that having those favorable, flexible policies is very important. Having a healthy office culture with respect. We have all kinds of systems in place, such as a culture handbook that basically tells us how to do certain things or how to manage certain things when things come up in the company. Social and environmental consciousness, people are searching for that as well. Growth in the company, they want to feel like they're part of something that's actually growing. And as I mentioned earlier, is very important for many of the people. So how do you build a healthy remote culture? I would say one of the most important things, and it's pretty tough because sometimes we think that we are communicating well, but I would say it's over communicating. If you think that you're communicating well, just think, how can you communicate a little bit more, whether it's a point. If it's something that's kind of hard to communicate on the chat, try to actually jump on a call and be like, hey, can we talk on the phone or can we talk on Zoom? And that might actually change the conversation. Asking as much as possible. Sometimes we're scared to ask questions, or we don't promote that and we don't empower our employees to ask questions. Asking, telling them to ask whenever, even if they think it's a stupid question. We always say go to Google first and try to figure it out yourself. But if they can't, and it's something that they're concerned about, and something, especially if it's personal, ask. And we sometimes have to just encourage them to do that. Leading horizontally, that's something else that we tend to do very well, is keeping a very, very flat structure within our team so that people feel that they can lead and they're empowered to lead, and they don't feel like we're hierarchical in any way. I also think adjusting expectations is really important, because we know that, things come up, people have different things going on, and it's gotten harder because people are now diversifying their hats more, right? There's a lot of people doing sometimes more than one thing. They're, engaging in multiple opportunities. We have a lot of, especially today, we see a lot of retention issues within many companies, and people are not wanting to stay in one job for more than a couple of years sometimes, or even just more than a few months. And we see that turnover. So adjusting your expectations that, this is not just about you finding the right person for you, or the right employee for your team, but also, finding a way to making sure that it's the right fit for them. Are they the right fit for your company? Is it the right fit for them and what they're looking for as well? And I think that's very key. Over here, we have also, accountability, really important, trust, transparency, empathy, and social connection. So whether you have a way to, foster a Zoom party or team building activities online, that's really important as well, so that you're not just getting work done, but you're also finding a way to create a sense of culture. It takes a little bit of extra effort. It takes a little bit more team building. It takes a little bit more, trying to figure out how to do it in a fun way. But there are ways to do it to create that sense of connection, and not just make it feel that it's just about getting work done. And as you see here, this was actually just taken a few days ago in our team retreat here in Colombia. We were working in our co-working space in our Airbnb, and we realized it's so important to get together, especially now that it's become easier to do so with the pandemic and getting closer to the end of COVID, hopefully. But just getting together and empowering everyone to share, doing these types of retreats where people can bring their ideas to the table, where we're all leading horizontally, and we all can bring our different visions together and figure out how we can plan the next year. So doing an offsite, some of you might not be able to do it in person. I know some people are located in areas it's harder. We couldn't have everyone on our team, but we got at least half of them. You can also do virtual retreats. Some people do virtual retreats and do that. We did that last year when we couldn't travel because of COVID. Culture handbooks, we have a great culture handbook. There's many out there that you can sort of adapt. You don't have to start from scratch, but having a really good culture handbook for onboarding when you have new people starting is really important, so that they're on the same page. You have your values instilled. Even if you're like a 3-person company, it's important to establish those early on so that they can help grow the company with attracting people that are aligned to that vision. Bonding over common interests. We realized in our team how much we love chocolate, how much we love cats, and how much we love food and dancing. And so we made sure that we did a lot of that during the retreat. Having long-term teammates. I think that sometimes we think we just need someone for a certain skill set, and we're like, well, I just want someone to help me. And I think that's where I see a lot of entrepreneurs when they fail, is like, it's not just about hiring someone to help you. You have to also figure out, how can you make this a good experience for them in terms of employee experience? How can you make sure that they're going to be happy here and they're going to be happy working for you, so that you both are happy and you both want to grow together. And that's where I see a lot of retention issues, is when we as leaders don't really empathize and realize, like, how do we make sure our employees are motivated and happy? Another thing here is, valuing our employees in more ways. So sometimes we realize they have certain skill sets, and they say, well, I have an idea, or maybe I can help with this, and really trying to listen. That's something I'm always working on, is really, how can we really listen to our team members and make sure that they're valued in ways that maybe we didn't think that we valued them when they came on. It's interesting. innovative team recipe. It's actually from my book. It was adapted from one of my 100 interviews I did for the book. And basically, this is a recipe for having an innovative team, a team that can make a lot of impact, that can be really successful for the business. Because at the end of the day, it's not your clients, it's not your systems, it's the people you work with that will make or break your business. It's not just about you, it's about everyone you work with. And you want to make sure you have the right combination of personalities on your team. So as the entrepreneur or business owner, you might be just like myself, the ideas person, the visionary of the company. You might have all the ideas, and you might want to, be more of an idealist and be like, I want to do all these things, but you will need an executor to make them happen. Now, the challenge is when you have an executor or a team of executors, you might not always have a strategy. That was like when it was me and my assistant. I was like, okay, I have all these ideas, let's go implement them. We got some success, but we also failed because we didn't have a strategy. And that's when our strategist came in, my current business partner, who was able to basically take everything that we did and package it into solutions, package it properly into offerings, and do all that analysis. And then having somebody that can really craft a really good customer experience, because at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about making sure our team members are happy, but also making sure our customers are happy. And so having a designer, and not necessarily a graphic designer, but a service designer, somebody that can really craft a unique experience, is key. And you don't have to have just one of each. You can have multiple. Oftentimes there's one or two visionaries, and then a set of executors, a couple of strategists, and a few designers. And some people might have overlapping skills. Some people are good at both the design and execution. But it's very rare that people will excel at two very, very well at the same time, or more than two. So just wanted to mention that. The example that I shared about my team and I. So when we started my current company, Ripple Impact, it was just me and my assistant, and we knew that we had to crowdfund to have a successful book for Innovation Starts with I that just launched now. But a year and a half ago, when we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign, when we realized that the publishing industry has changed so much in the pandemic that we should just self-publish the book to have the most success and reach the most people, we ran a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo, and we raised, between Indiegogo and some other funding that we received through organizations, we raised over $50,000. And that actually led to the creation of Ripple Impact and what we're doing today. And that was all because we had a team. I had a team with my book that was helping me with the different components of my book, but it was also having, starting to grow our team. We knew we needed social media help and marketing help. We knew we needed a strategy for our campaign. And ultimately that same team, the four of us, then co-founded Ripple Impact and got that started by building a beta business accelerator to help entrepreneurs and become the team to them behind the scenes. And that's how it all started. It all started from just a very small team, 2 of us, the 4 to 8, and now we're almost 16. And I'm sorry if there's some salsa music in the background, I can't control that. And this is our team today, some of our team, most of them actually, and where we are the team behind the scenes at Ripple Impact. And it's interesting how we've divided functionally between, business, branding, and marketing, and how we are all managing, each other in a way, whether we're managing up or down. Another thing I really want to say is that, time is our most valuable asset. This was taken right out of my book. It's the only asset that we share equally with Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Elon Musk. And whatever we do right now, today, will impact the next few years. And what we do in the next few years will impact the following decades. And so we really have to prioritize our business goals and learn when to say no. We need to know how to really manage our time and prioritize, because whatever we do today, when we look back like a couple of years from now, I'm like, well, do I really want to be known for having done all these things on Canva, or am I trying to become a graphic designer? No. But maybe it would have been smarter if I had delegated certain things when I now look back and said, well, I could have maybe grown faster and prioritized better if I had built a team earlier and, managed my own time better, especially if you are the person that deals directly with your customers or clients. It's very important you have help, with all the other stuff that you really don't want to be doing or you really suck at. So it's very important, especially a lot of our entrepreneurs at Ripple Impact, they're spending all this time sometimes doing social media marketing and all these other things. And we're like, well, how important is that for your business? And how important is it that you spend your time doing that versus having someone else do that, and figure out the cost and hire accordingly. And this is where we talk about the 4 Ds of time management. It's important to figure out what are the things that you need to do. And this is something that I keep on my whiteboard next to my desk at home. And I look at it every morning and figure out, how do I prioritize my time? What are things that I should be doing that nobody else can do, that are very important for the What are things that I can delegate and give to some of the team members that, just simply taking some time to manage, put down a few tasks in Asana and tell them what to do, what they need to get done and by what time, what can be delegated that maybe they either can get better at or they already are better than me at. What are some things that I can delay, that I can push off for later and say, well, maybe this doesn't need to happen now. It can happen 2 months from now, or I can revisit it later. And what are the tasks that I can completely dump? Maybe it doesn't make sense to even, think about it anymore. Maybe it's overwhelming. Maybe it can be merged with another activity. And what can just be deleted from the to-do list? This is the team empowerment matrix. And this one is really cool because you can actually analyze within the different personalities on your team, the visionary, the strategist, the executor, and the designer. What are the things that you actually each do? What are the things that you each excel at? What are the things that you're not good at? What should you do? And what roles do you need? For example, right now we've done this analysis and we're like, we need a few new team members join as soon as possible for certain roles because we've done this analysis. And as a startup, we've had to move some roles around because we all play different dynamic roles, but it's important to figure out, well, what are the talent gaps based on doing this analysis? So I highly recommend this. And we actually have a free tool that we'll share later with you. Stephen will put it into the chat if you want to access an editable tool to do this analysis yourself with your team. And then, when you always want to be getting feedback from your team, it's really great. This is an example of a feedback matrix for whenever we do some sort of project with clients or some sort of, launch and we're trying to test something. This is from when we did our accelerator. We launched our beta accelerator, and a few months later, we did this feedback matrix to really understand, well, what worked with the accelerator, what didn't work, what questions we could put out there, and what are some ideas. And this is something that we did as a team to figure out how to improve our products and services. And that's something that you also want to bring your team in, because surprisingly, you might have some really, really great ideas come up in different perspectives. Some of you might be wondering, so how do you actually find talent? Where do you find it? And I would say some of the best talent I found is using some different remote talent agencies. So some services like You Assist Me, there's a bunch of them out there, and where they curate and they recruit and they do all the vetting process and all the background checks and whatever is needed. So you don't have to deal with that. They can sometimes be a little expensive. It really depends on your budget. But I find sometimes the best talent that I don't have to deal with all that weeding, and generally they're already, they come with a lot of talent, or they also get extra support from those agencies to get training and additional, resources to grow. Network referrals, excellent. If you can, lean on your network and ask people or send an email around and be like, hey, I'm looking for this talent. I'm looking for these roles. Do you know anyone? You can also go into Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups. Excellent way to source talent is just asking, your trusted network. You can also use platforms like Upwork, where I used to work, and they have a lot of talent on there, depending on what level of expertise you're looking for. Knowing how to really craft a good job description on there and really knowing what you want is key to attract the talent that might work best for you. Fiverr is okay, I think, for short-term stuff. I don't use it much anymore, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs find it fairly reasonable, especially if you just have some short-term need that you might not need again, or something that is not, you don't really need somebody to come on board onto your team, but you just need a little bit of freelance help here and there. Using LinkedIn, great for crafting job descriptions and attracting talent both within and outside of your network. Using alumni associations and groups. There's also some different communities out there like Freelancing Females, where you can actually go and pay $20 and post something on their platform. And so these are just some different ideas of where you can find talent. You also want to have your own process of how you go through that vetting process of how I explained the trial and how we do some of the aptitude tests, but everyone can develop their own process. And so I'm curious to hear, are remote teams the right solution for you, and what brings you here? And if you want to share in the chat, I'd be happy to hear from you. And we're getting close to the Q&A period. So if you want to drop questions using the Q&A feature on Zoom, I'll be taking them very shortly. And if you want to download the team empowerment matrix, Stephen will share in the chat. I think he already did. And it's a really cool slide. It's an editable tool that you can just make a copy of and save in your backend. So you can actually do this exercise and figure out, well, what roles do you need? And one way you can support me if you found value in this webinar, you want to hear more, you want more tools, is purchasing my book, which is just got released November 1st. And there's lots of tools and frameworks and things in this book. It's a very valuable toolkit. It's became a best-selling book within a day. And I'm now traveling on my book tour, going from Colombia to DC to Dubai to Oman and then Mexico City. And hopefully I'll be able to meet some of you in person at ASW events next year. But essentially, if you really want to support and hear more of my story and have more tools like some of the ones I shared with you, my book might be a lot of value, especially if you're an entrepreneur, an innovator, a leader, or a business owner. And now I am here to take your questions. So I already see there are some, and I'll start taking them right now. So we have a question here from Juan Bernardo Ceballos. Why did I select Colombia for my business? Is it business friendly? And how is the qualification of personnel? So that's a great question. The way I can answer that is my business is actually headquartered in Washington, DC, but we have a second headquarters here in Colombia. And the reason is mostly because when I was looking for help, an assistant at the time, and I had my first assistant, who now is our creative director and brand strategist and is helping manage the business. She just happened to be from Colombia. And it was there that I said, well, it seems like there's a lot of creative talent. And when we were growing our team, we hired a few people from around the world, but it just seemed that Colombia had, a lot of creative talent and a really good work ethic, and just the economy is growing very quickly. And I also spoke Spanish because I am fluent in Spanish from my own, studies and my own, my specialization, my regional specialization from college and my master's. So I just felt like Colombia would be a great way to, work in one country where we can expand, a certain number of people, especially within the creative space. We also have some people that are not in the creative space that are project managers or client managers. And so it just kind of started because we had one person in Colombia that could recruit in Colombia. And that's how it all got started. This is actually my first time traveling to Colombia after several canceled flights, but it was not because of my own, my own story in any way. It was really because of the fact that my assistant at the time hired a bunch of Colombians, and we just started to grow there. But we also have employees in Pakistan and Europe and North America. So it's not necessarily just here. It just happens to be a lot of creative talent, and the talent is really great here as well. How do I find reasonable personal rotation? Well, actually, you had a question here. Are millennials better prepared for remote work as compared with older generations? I would say definitely. They're very familiar. And I would say even more than millennials, Gen Z, very, very comfortable with using remote tools and cloud tools and all sorts of stuff. So they're very fast. I'm an older millennial, so for me, I'm still very fast, but it surprises me to see how people that are younger than me can sometimes just think so differently. And there's certain things I now realize, wow, I'm getting old and I'm just not as fast as some of them, and they just can't think in the way that they can think growing up with so much technology. So having to let them lead in certain ways and come up with ideas and ways to solve problems has been really, really empowering. Finding reasonable personal rotation. I think that, you realize that people will come and go. You're not going to have a lot of people stay a very, very long time, like in the older generations and before just a couple decades ago, when people might spend 20 to 30 years in a job. It doesn't work like that anymore. And so you actually have to leverage the fact that when you do rotate, you always want to find better talent. And you always want to, realize that those new perspectives can really help the company grow and stay in a healthy mode. How do you retain talent working remotely? And I think I gave some ideas on building a really good team culture. I think it's important also to try to make an effort to try to meet your employees in person. That's something I personally, try to do, especially someone that loves travel, and I love to gather people, but not everyone has to do that. I think it works if you all love travel, but I think in terms of retention, I think it's important to have different incentives and policies in place that make you more competitive. If you are hiring people in different countries, for example, in emerging markets, my advice would be to try to compensate them more than what the local market rate is, so that they're incentivized just by that. Another question here from Juan Bernardo Ceballos is, how do you manage the career of your team remotely and any challenges there? So I would say that, I found it helpful from the very beginning to offer mentorship, and not just regarding the actual job, but just career mentorship and career. I'm a coach already and I'm certified in that, but I think just I wish that I've excelled before when I've had bosses that gave me that sort of coaching or mentorship and someone that is a big advocate of mentorship and has grown mentorship programs in different organizations like the World Bank. I know how important mentorship is and being there. And so setting up mentorships was also really helpful, because we know that oftentimes, especially younger people, might be lost in figuring out, well, why am I here? What should I do next? How can I figure out, my sweet spot or what I want to do in life? And a lot of younger people might be confused because of the way the world is changing so quickly. What they studied might not be relevant anymore. And so, or what they thought they wanted to do changed. And so it's important to give that mentorship and be there and set up that extra time to check in with your employees regularly. Another question here is, what tools or platforms do you suggest for working in cloud mode? So I actually have another slide. It's not on this deck, but essentially using different tools. Like we use Thinkific to manage our online courses. We have Slack to use for team communications. We use Asana to use for project management and all the different tasks within and subtasks within everything that we do on a daily basis. We have both Slack for our internal team, as well as a Slack workspace for our clients, where they each have their own channel, which is really cool because we can communicate with them directly as a team, not everyone on our team, but just a few of us that are client facing can communicate directly with our clients in those channels. And they can also collaborate with each other, which is great, because at the end of the day, we're trying to build a community, and it's a very different way of working, but it has worked well so far for us, and they seem to like that. So I also think using Canva, we use Adobe Creative Cloud, we use Google Drive and all the different pieces and parts of Google Drive, Zoom. We use so many different platforms, as well as some third-party things like Zapier, and sometimes we'll use for transcription a different cloud tool, for meeting transcription. There's so many tools out there, and so they're all in our employee handbook, actually, our culture handbook. And so I highly recommend keeping everything on the cloud if you're trying to build a remote team. Someone asked here, what are the highlights of the Accelerator? I'm not sure I quite understood the question, but if it's what do we do at the Business Accelerator, is we help people who are trying to build a business, whether it's around themselves and their own services, whether it's around, they already are a small business and they're trying to go from early stage and grow to the next level, or they just have an idea and they're like, well, I want to be an entrepreneur and I'm not sure how to launch this business successfully. We basically help them from everything around their business strategy and planning, to marketing strategy and planning, to their brand and launching their brand, or facelifting their brand if they're an existing business. And we really take care of everything from, all the things on design. We do everything in Canva so that they can take ownership of it after we're done. We meet with them weekly for strategy sessions and give them advice. We really are the team behind the scenes and partnering with them for their success. We're communicating on Slack. We have all sorts of back-end tools and documents and systems in place to help them with whatever they're trying to launch or be successful at. And we help them build their own teams and grow their own teams. So, if they're in the phase where they're like graduating from our accelerator and they need to have more support and not just lean on us anymore, we help them so they can grow their own team and they can be sustainable and grow their business, and they don't need to constantly, piecemeal everything and hire career or business coach from here, freelancer from here. We try to do it in a very comprehensive way between business, branding, and marketing. So that's how I can answer that question in a short way. And I don't know if I see any other questions here, but I'll wait a moment to check the chat. Someone asked if we have a copy of the slides. I'm not sure we can share these slides specifically, but we can, this meeting is being recorded. So Ellen will kindly make sure that this gets onto YouTube so that other ASW members can also check it out if they weren't able to make it today. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's see if there's any more questions. That's it. All right, well, I guess I can end this here. Ellen, feel free to jump in if you'd like. I just want to say thank you so much for attending, and I hope that you found some value in it. If you'd like to leave any feedback, whether directly or in the chat, just feel free to do so. And I'd love to hear what some of your next steps are, or what was your favorite part. And yeah, feel free to reach out or to follow me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. And if you'd like to check out my book, it's on Amazon, as Stephen has put the link in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saleema, on behalf of our community.